It seems like every 10 or so years, Hollywood takes another stab at adapting the classic story of Robin Hood. 50% of the time we get a good or passable adaptation, like 1973's Robin Hood or 1991's Prince of Thieves. And the other 50% of the time we get a bad or awful adaptation, like 2010's Robin Hood or the topic of today's video, 2018's Robin Hood. Not only did this movie secure a spot for one of the worst films of 2018, but it also bombed at the box office, not even managing to make back its budget. To many people, it was forgotten about as quickly as it came, and to others, it has been permanently seared into their minds, unable to leave. So in this video, I want to take a look at this disaster, tracing the movie back to its development in order to find out where it all went wrong, and how we ended up with the abysmal end product. The story of 2018's Robin Hood starts all the way back in 2015, when it was announced that Leonardo DiCaprio's production company, Appenway Productions, would produce a new adaptation of the classic story. The script was going to be written by Joby Harold, who had just finished writing the screenplay for 2017's King Arthur: Legend of the Sword. At the time, this was actually one of 3 Robin Hood movies that were being developed, as both Disney and Sony were working on their own projects based on the iconic public domain character. However, those other projects fizzled out. Joby Harold's Robin Hood was then picked up by Lionsgate for distribution and was given the title Robin Hood Origins. However, as we now know, this name was later changed to just Robin Hood. A few months later, Otto Bathurst was attached to direct the picture. The film was originally set to come out in March of 2018, however, this was pushed back to November instead. As for casting, Jack Huston, Jack Reynor, and Dylan O'Brien were all considered for the lead role. However, it ended up with Taron Egerton. At first, it was uncertain whether Egerton could be in the flick, since there were scheduling conflicts with Kingsman: The Golden Circle. However, the 2 studios worked it out and he was able to star in both films. As for the rest of the cast, we got the talents of Eve Hewson, Jamie Foxx, and Ben Mendelsohn. Filming kicked off in early 2017, shooting all across Europe in Croatia, France, and Hungary. While shooting in a studio in Hungary, a fire broke out which sadly resulted in the death of a cast member. The name of the cast member was not released, and this fire led Lionsgate to sue the Fireman's Fund Insurance Company for $1.6 million. I'm surprised this fire didn't make bigger news, as I only found this story reported on a handful of websites. Something else that surprised me was the discrepancies between who actually wrote the script. During the development phase, all the sources I found said that Joby Harold wrote the script. However, the finished project says that the script was penned by Ben Chandler and David James Kelly. I know that David James Kelly is a real guy, as he has more screenwriting credits and I actually found footage and pictures of him. However, I could not find anything on Ben Chandler. There's no interviews, no pictures, or videos of him. And Robin Hood is the only credit on his IMDb. Now, I don't have any solid proof, but my best guess is that Joby Harold was not happy with the finished product and decided to use a pseudonym so as not to hurt his reputation. And you know what? I totally understand. I wouldn't want my name on this either. Anyways, Robin Hood released on Thanksgiving weekend of 2018, coming in at number 7 in the box office. Yeah, that's right. In its opening weekend, it debuted at number 7, right behind Ralph Breaks the Internet, Creed 2, Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald, The Grinch, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Instant Family. Over the 5-day holiday weekend, it only scraped together $14 million. And throughout its entire US run, it would only go on to make $30 million. Overseas, it fared slightly better at $55 million for a combined worldwide gross of $86 million. And against a budget of $100 million, that means this film was a certified box office bomb. But maybe the reviews were good at least. In addition to these scores, it also got nominated for 3 Razzies at the 39th Annual Golden Raspberry Awards. Those being for Worst Picture, Worst Prequel, Remake, Spin-off, or Sequel, and Worst Supporting Actor for Jamie Foxx. However, it lost all these awards to Holmes and Watson. Very deserved.
Oh yeah, little...
So let's analyze why this film failed, both from a commercial perspective, but also from an artistic perspective. As I stated at the beginning of this video, Robin Hood is just a story that we've seen too many times on the big screen. Just 8 years before this film came out, Ridley Scott's Robin Hood came out. I mean, the filmmakers of 2018's Robin Hood didn't even try to change the title or anything. 2010's Robin Hood didn't get the best reviews either, so general audiences already had a bad taste in their mouth surrounding the property. This film is very reminiscent of King Arthur: Legend of the Sword, which came out a year before Robin Hood and also majorly bombed. It's a character and story we've seen dozens of times before, and every couple of years, another studio tries to reinvent it with a new spin. The problem is, although these characters are well known, they aren't necessarily beloved. It's the idea of pop culture relevance. Even though people recognize the name, it doesn't inspire them to get off their butts and go to the theater like a name like Spider-Man would. Even though Spider-Man also gets rebooted every 8 years, it's a more relevant character that average audiences want to see more. I'm sure if someone made an actually good movie based on these characters, then I would be proved wrong. But until that day, I don't think a Robin Hood or King Arthur movie will do blockbuster numbers in the modern age. We could also blame the marketing campaign for this film's disappointing box office. Not because the film was marketed too little, but because it was marketed too much. In the week leading up to the film's release, it was estimated that Lionsgate spent around $8 million on TV ads just for 1 week, totaling 1,037 national ad airings on 35 networks. That is way too aggressive of a marketing campaign for a property that people didn't really care about in the first place. I don't know about other people, but when I see the same trailer over and over and over and over again, it just annoys the hell out of me. And it's not like these trailers were changing any minds either. Just like the movie itself, the trailers were confusing as hell. Is this supposed to be modern day or medieval era? Is it fantasy or dystopia? Why are people dressed like that? What is going on? This is not My Beautiful House. This is not My Beautiful Wife.
How did I get here?
Additionally, as I touched on in the last section, the film had some tough competition at the box office. It was going against sequels to already established brands that have already proven to perform well in the theater. Of the films I listed earlier, only 2 were movies that weren't a sequel or reboot of some kind, those being Bohemian Rhapsody and Instant Family. Lastly, the biggest factor that contributed to this film's box office failure is that the movie is just insanely bad. Leading up to its release, the film simply did not have the hype it needed, and once the reviews dropped, any hype it did have completely evaporated. These reviews and poor word of mouth killed this film in its tracks. So what about this movie is so bad? Well, let me share some of my thoughts on the film. This movie is ridiculous. For the first 2 acts, it very much landed in the territory of bad, but still enjoyable. However, the last 15 minutes is what really unraveled into the strictly bad territory. Before I tear into this movie, let me tell you what I liked about it. Ben Mendelsohn is great as the Sheriff of Nottingham. He's basically doing Krennic from Rogue One, but it's still great, so I'm not complaining. Additionally, I thought some of the action was good. Let me emphasize the word some. If you can shut your brain off, this movie can be entertaining at parts. I don't like this movie, but I do respect it. I respect that it fully went for it and fully committed to its own unique vision. It's just unfortunate that unique vision wasn't a good one. This movie completely disregards the laws of physics and rejects the idea of historical accuracy. I could go full CinemaSins and break down every instance where this movie doesn't make sense, or the characters break the laws of nature, but if I did, this video would be an hour and 45 minutes long. I'll just throw in my favorite bit, when the guards move fire out of the way with their shields. That is cinema right there, baby. What time period is this movie supposed to be in? I'm not claiming to be a master historian, but the way Robin Hood shoots his bow in this movie feels very cartoonish. Although Edgerton did a lot of archery training for the film, which is awesome and I respect. But still. And the crossbows and scorpions in this movie shoot like they're automatic weapons.
In our story, bows and arrows are guns, and you don't go into a gunfight with just one shot. You go into a gunfight with a full mag.
Not to mention, all the costumes in this movie look modern day. Like, come on, the Sheriff of Nottingham is literally wearing a suit. They didn't even try to make this film historical. And from that fact alone, you have to respect the movie. But that still doesn't mean it's good. This feels like a film that wanted to do a modern take on the story, but still set it in medieval times for some reason. You could easily take this movie, change just a few aspects, and make it fit into the 21st century. That's really what the filmmakers should have done. I am all for doing a fresh take on the story and character, but you have to fully commit rather than masquerading like it's something new when at its core, it's not. Sure, stylistically this movie is very different from other interpretations, but at the same time, it rehashes the same cliches and tropes we've seen thousands of times. The whole section with Robin and the Crusades is shot like it's American Sniper, which I get was intentional and the filmmakers were trying to make a point, but it also pushes the suspension of disbelief to its absolute limits. Not only that, but it's trying way too hard to be a Batman movie. Before you comment, I know that Robin Hood came first and Batman took lots of inspiration from the character, but that doesn't mean this film isn't taking every single beat from the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy. Just check out the Honest trailer for this movie, it sums it up best. There's also a lot of technical aspects of this movie that are just blatantly bad. I had to emphasize earlier that I thought only some of the action was good, because 75% of it is very, very bad. This is really down to the sloppy and over-the-top editing. Dude, they should have put some tape over the slow motion button because they utilized it way too much. Not only that, but there's some basic continuity errors that make the film feel very amateur. The one I remember most is this scene where Jamie Foxx takes a bite out of an apple, but in the next shot, it is glaringly obvious that there's nothing in his mouth. Another funny bit was when Jamie Foxx's hand gets cut off, and then in the very next scene, he looks completely healthy. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. This also leads into the performances. Taron Egerton and Jamie Foxx are great actors, but they are terrible in this movie. I did not like Egerton's performance at all, and I did not buy him as Robin Hood. It's a good thing Rocketman came out just a few months after this film, or I think his career would have taken a huge hit. It's just a bad movie. I don't know what else to say. And then the filmmakers had the gall to try and set up a sequel. Come on, be for real. I bet this would be a good movie if you had a lobotomy. So if you still have your frontal lobe, I don't think you'll enjoy this. 2018's Robin Hood is yet another attempt to try and reinvent the beloved folk hero in an uninspired adaptation. It's a bizarre mess of a movie that couldn't even scrape back its original budget and is widely regarded as one of the worst renditions of the iconic character. Hollywood needs to learn that Robin Hood peaked back in 2001 with Shrek.
Oh, merry man!
Just that 3-minute scene is leagues better than anything in this abomination. But what are your thoughts on 2018's Robin Hood? Did you see it? If you have, I am so sorry. What's your favorite adaptation of Robin Hood? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. This has been Tom from Eisenhart Productions, and thank you so much for watching. See you next week.